Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I am Kyra Mitchell Lewis, and pardon me, I seem to have a tickle in my throat. So I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe, whether you guys have ventured out into the world or are simply just staying home inside. Hope you're taking care of your mental and physical wellness and just enjoying life as much as you can right now. Today, we're talking a topic that I am super excited to speak on today, self-discovery. I know a lot of you have been in a discovery phase probably over the last 3 months, whether you plan to be or the opportunity, like for a lot of people, just happened to fall in your lap. And many of us had already embarked on our own self-discovery missions. So, that being said, no matter what journey you're on, remember it's all about discovering self revelations and utilizing tips and, advice and therapists in a lot of cases to help you discover revelations that can simply help you become a better and more balanced version of yourself. And today I'm super excited to share this week's Glow Getter of the Week's story, Alyssa Roper. I met Alyssa at a previous job and honestly just always really admired her zest for learning and growth. And last year, she embarked on her own journey of self-discovery that has led her to becoming her most authentic version of herself, which has also led to her living her best life. And I know that because I follow Alyssa on Instagram, and I'm certain that she's living her best life right now. But all jokes aside, I definitely am so pleased that she said yes to joining the podcast today and telling her story. So guys, stay tuned. I promise you it is all going to be worth it, and it is a very inspiring journey indeed. Are you ready to start a podcast but don't know where to start? Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you why. It's free. There's an easy creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be easily heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hi, Alyssa.
Hey, Kyra, how are you?
I'm doing good. So thank you so much for joining the Glow Up Girl podcast. How's it going? How's your day today?
Oh, I've had a beautiful day. I'm doing really well. How was yours?
I cannot complain. You know how you come off the long weekend and you're sort of dreading it, but I've been doing this thing every day where I pick some kind of action word where I'm like, today I'm going to choose joy. And so all day I sort of talk to myself and remind myself and talk to God all day about the promise I made the night before to choose and lead with joy today. So it was pretty good.
I love that. I might actually do something similar myself, but it's usually the same. I choose the same thing every day, which is today is a good day.
Okay. No, I like that. I mean, you have to will that into existence.
Absolutely. Call those things that are not as though they were.
Amen. Well, I just want to thank you again for taking the time out to join us and share your story. I know I am inspired just by our conversation, and I know that it will be so helpful to my audience as well.
Oh, good, good. I'm happy to be here, and I am honored that you asked me.
Well, let's go ahead and get into it because we have a lot to cover.
Okay.
So, let's talk about the start of your journey. So what led you to begin this journey to becoming your most authentic self?
Wow. Okay. So in so many words, because I can really talk about this until, what do they used to say, the cows come home, but I will be on, I'll honor our time. It started for me a year ago, a little over a year ago, in March of 2019. I had what one would call a spiritual awakening. And, some people say that can happen to people when they've experienced some kind of trauma. And I almost bought into that, but I hadn't experienced any trauma. So I was still trying to understand what was going on within me. But it all started really kind of this weird way. I was sleeping at my home at the time, which was in Decatur, Georgia, and my daughter was with her father for the weekend, and I have a small dog. His name is JJ. He's a Maltese, and if you know anything about small dogs, they bark at any and everything. And so it was really, really early in the morning. The sun hadn't come up yet, and I thought I heard my doorbell ring, but it was very like an urgent ring, like somebody was ringing it over and over and over again. And I sat up in the bed, and I was like, "Oh my God, what is that? Who's at my door?" I was startled, and then I realized that the dog wasn't barking, and that was obviously unlike him. And so I thought, well, I must have been dreaming, and I went back to sleep. And I woke up the next morning, in the morning, I guess a few hours later, and it stuck with me. I was like, I was so positive I heard someone at the door. And I was like, I wonder if maybe they just left a package. Maybe the dog didn't hear it. What? I don't know what that was. And then I realized on my way to the front door that to check things out, that my doorbell was broken. So I couldn't have heard my doorbell ring because it doesn't work.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I kind of brushed it off, but then I was still really curious. Something within me was like, what was that? I don't, you know yourself, right? And so whether or not you're crazy.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not crazy, so I think I know what I heard. And so I Googled it, and sure enough, when I Googled, hearing your doorbell, or some people, have like the phone ringing or a knock on the door, and it said something I came across said something about spiritual awakening, and that piqued my interest. And so I started kind of delving into, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And it kind of just started there. And honestly, I mean, it sounds hokey, but that is how it started.
Wow, that is very interesting. That's really interesting, because I think, a lot of times when you're sleeping, or, you say that, but I've had a similar, dream where you think you hear someone calling your name, or,
yes.
And I'm always like, if I wake up because I think I heard someone call my name, but yet I was the only person up at that time, I am like, okay, let me just sit down and start praying. What are we supposed to be talking about, God, that I'm just, like I'm brushing off? So I definitely understand that completely.
Yeah, well, my dad always told me, if you hear, your name being called, that's God trying to get your attention. So I had heard that before, and so I very much believed that. Yeah, so it wasn't far-fetched for me to look up, what does it mean if you hear a doorbell?
Okay, so let's just go ahead and pick up the joys of modern technology.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and we'll pick up, where we left off, with you and God coming together.
Yes.
Figure out this plan of how you move forward on this journey of self-discovery.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say that I had no idea what a spiritual awakening was. I had never, I don't think in my recollection, had ever heard of anything like that. So I think just Googling it and reading just a little bit that I did intrigued me, and it really awoke something within me. And so I started delving deep into what a spiritual awakening is. And the more I read, the more I felt I completely resonated with what I was reading. But I was also, I guess, a little apprehensive because I didn't know what this was asking of me. And when I say that because at the time I was a Christian, and that's what I associated myself as. I had been for over 30 some odd at that point. And I knew nothing different than God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit and church. And so I was like, what's a spiritual awakening? Who are you asking me to pray to?
Right.
What is this about? And I just wanted to gain an understanding. But in gaining my understanding, I would be remiss in saying that I didn't feel like I was cheating on God a little bit, because I didn't know anything other than the Bible. And I was, at that point in my life, was convinced that was the only way to salvation and to heaven. And so I felt like, am I tapping into or playing with something demonic, or something that's witchcraft or whatever? I mean, I just didn't know, honestly. And it wasn't until I came across the readings and lectures and books of Neville Goddard that I was able to see the coalition between relationship with God and how that could very much still be my very everyday existence, but from a different standpoint of understanding that we as people, not just people, but nature, trees, grass, the sky, the sun, every nationality known to man, every animal, we are all intricately connected. God created us all. And so there is so much more bigger picture here at play than just my way or the highway, which is how I grew up.
Okay. So speaking of that, so obviously if you were on the brink of something, somewhat different for you, a new experience. So
Very different.
How did you deal with that as you started to maybe talk to your parents and your family? Did you get any resistance to? Because I know personally, whenever you're going through growth, a lot of people can't deal with that, and it feels like, oh, you're becoming this different person when really you're trying to evolve. So what type of resistance did you meet, or and how did you push through that to continue your experience?
Yeah, I was very selective with who I shared what I was going through with, because I was at a stage where I didn't want anyone's influence. Like, I didn't want anyone to tell me this is wrong or this is right or do it this way. I didn't want any of that. So I kept it under wraps for a little bit until I felt comfortable sharing. And the first real time of me sharing what was going on with me was with my parents. And I think that I needed to share it with my parents first because my dad was a pastor, and so I grew up, in the church, and I was just like, okay, if I can share this with my dad with conviction and with honesty and integrity of who I am and what I'm feeling, and respecting myself, and then also respecting that he may just not agree with anything that I'm saying.
Right.
If I can share it with him, that would give me kind of a gauge on whether or not I could share this with other people. And when I shared it with my dad, I was completely shocked at his acceptance of what it was I was going through and what it was I was experiencing. Of course, hearing myself explaining it to my parents, I didn't think I was doing it justice, but at that time it was still very early and I was still learning. Felt like I was a balloon getting ready to burst, though. I wanted to just share this profound information that I stumbled upon, or really didn't stumble upon, it fell on me. And I was just excited really to be able to share with him. And I was even more excited when he was like, "This is phenomenal. Please tell me more."
Oh, that's support.
Yes.
That's definitely the support that you need to begin something. And like you said, it's not, you were not saying no to God. You were just experiencing something new and trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that it wasn't a this or that. It was very much a then some. It was like so I grew up with a very authoritative view of God. I respected God as the eye in the sky and the gonna get ya if you sin type God, the 10 9, right? And I felt like I was failing. At this point I was divorced. I was dating again, and to be perfectly honest, for the first time in my life was I faced with premarital sex. Like, was I gonna have sex outside of marriage? It was just like it was like a tsunami of decisions as a 47-year-old woman that I didn't think I was ever going to be faced with. So I had to come to terms with God on where my life was at that time. I grew up kind of pretty much following the rules, pretty straight-laced, and I let my siblings be the hellraisers, and I just kind of silently sat back and watched and sneakily did little things here and there, but afraid of God, and so didn't really live my true authentic self. So through the spiritual awakening, this was very much a me having a vastly different understanding of who God is in my life, and dispelling all the thoughts that I could do something that would cast me into this damnation of hell, and really seeing God in terms of love. What does love mean? What does love look like? And even though I can describe it based off of what I have in my life in times of love, and describe it in terms of beauty, God's love is far beyond that and overreaches any and all sins. So it was coming to terms with that. Yeah.
No, that's definitely. I do love that you said, God being like, gotcha. and I know, and I think, too, from our previous conversation, it's getting to a place to where you are, seeing God as your friend, and and no way of disrespect of what he means to all of us, but just being able to go to him and speak to him, and just be honest, because so like you said, he already is aware of the things that you are thinking, the things that he knows what you're going to do. So a lot of times I'm always like, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that because I already thought that, and I'm going to repent for that later on.
Right. Well, and I think that, we are remiss in forgetting that God is our creator, and he didn't accidentally make you the way you are. You are uniquely you because he made you that way. She made you that way. And so, why then would you pretend that your creator doesn't already know what's within you?
No, that is so funny. I tell people that all the time. I am always like, if I'm going to say something, I'm like, you know what? But God made me funny. He gave me this personality. So he already knew the jokes that I would tell. So come on, guys, lighten up. Let's just go ahead and say it. So yeah, it's definitely, I think it's, it's achieving that comfort level in, really all things, and being transparent and just being honest, being able to just have real honest conversations with God. And like you said, not hiding, because when you are unable to just sort of be who you really are, you are really hiding. And it's like you're saying, I'm this person, but behind the scenes, you can't see me, and I'm going to do this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So when you spoke to your parents and you saw that you had support from them, so did you then share with your kids?
I did not share with my kids right away. And the reason behind that was because I am very much a proponent of wanting my children to experience things on their own. I didn't want them to feel like this is something that you need to do, or this happened to me and it's going to happen to you, or even I also didn't want to toy with the fact that they grew up also in church, and hey, everything that you learn is a lie. I didn't want I didn't want them to feel that way either. I just thought that organically it would come out because I was changing, and as I changed and evolved into who I was created to be, who I am on purpose, they would see that and they would ask questions, and I would, freely answer them. And so that's kind of how it started with my children. And it's been an amazing journey because they've seen they've seen their mom change into a completely person, and they think, my goodness, but they didn't, what my children didn't realize at the time was that I was their mother, yes, and I love that role in their lives. Nothing can ever come between that. But I was not my authentic self either during that time. So, I like to keep it 100 with my kids as much as possible, but I also want them to be very Christ conscious and have a true yearning to follow God on their own terms. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely, I really appreciate that as, you as a parent, because there are a lot of people who, and like with us, I know I grew up in South Georgia, in a small town. And so it was pretty much ingrained in you that, like you said, getting up, going to church on Sundays, you're going to Bible study, you're going to vacation Bible school, you were doing everything, you were participating in all of the church activities. And a lot of times it is, you get to this place of, because I know when I got to got to college, I was like, you know what? I am not getting up and going to church. No. Like, I've been going to church forever, yes. And I'm not going to go. I'm sleeping in. So I definitely really have to applaud you for just allowing them to find their own way, and to establish their relationships with God, and figure it out for themselves.
Well, and I would be remiss in saying there's also a clear understanding with or without spiritual awakening. I became a Christian when I was, 9 or 10 years old. My dad was a pastor of a Baptist church, and I walked down to that altar crying, and I don't really know why or what. I just felt some conviction and went for it, and I was baptized in the whole nine. But at this point, while I'm going through a spiritual awakening, I'm 7 and I'm divorced, and there's a lot of things that didn't work out the way that I thought that they were gonna work out. And so I was having my own come to Jesus moment in terms of, what does this mean? 47 middle-aged woman, divorced, and not really even, I'm not even in the same part of town that I used to live in to go to the same church. and, just all
Right.
of that. So it was, I had a lot of questions, lots of questions that needed answering.
So how did you continue? So what did you, how did you continue to study and learn to get you to, where you are today?
Wow. Well, okay. So, I go back to the Bible quite a bit because my understanding of the Bible is vastly different now. And it's who I am. It's ingrained in me, so that's not ever going to change. But what I do find is that when I read scripture now, it means to me so much more than what it did when I was younger or in the church reading it. I used to live my life in a sense of, God, if you would, God, could you, God, if you see fit, could you bless me? And when I started reading more, and I attribute a lot of this to like people like Joseph Murphy and Neville Goddard and Richard Rohr. These are true mystics in that they have the foundational Christian beliefs, but they interpret the Bible or help you to see it in a different sense in terms of the God that is within you and the power that God has already placed within you to really create your world, your life, your existence. So understanding that God is infinite intelligence. She, who, whatever God is, because I say that now lovingly because I don't know, God is not a person, like, and that for me was helpful because I needed to take the authoritarian view out of it. So, but for lack of better terms, he is infinite intelligence, meaning sees all, knows all, created all. And there is a reason why we are souls, spirits, having a human experience. But Jesus teaches us time and time again that we were made in the image of God, and that our Father, our Creator, and us are one. And so I stopped going to God in a begging, pleading sense, and in turn went to God with, I have a true understanding of the power that is within me, that I can manifest. I can speak those things that are not as though they were into my existence. You've given that. You've blessed me with that ability to do. But I'm not remiss in asking that your will be done in my life every single day. So I took what I was learning through these mystics and I applied it in the sense of giving myself the power that I was already inherently given, using that power to create my world, and continue to create my world, but from a sense of not so much begging and asking God, could you please do this for me? But God, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm dreaming and imagining. This is what I would love to do with my life. If it's your will, let this happen. And letting it sit there with that. And as I started down that path, as I started testing little things. So now you're going to laugh at this, but I literally started with stuff like I kept a manifestation journal, and I wrote down the small, like one time I wrote down, I will hear an Aretha Franklin song on the radio today if I'm on the right path. This is the kind of stuff that I would do just to be like, okay, I just need to know if I'm insane or if I'm on the right path. And then I would hear the Aretha Franklin song and I would lose my mind because I was like, there's no way, And little things like that started happening in my life, and it started a blaze of fire within me where I was just like, okay, if I can manifest an Aretha Franklin song, I can manifest my absolute best life.
Right.
So
No,
yeah, so that's kind of how it started, which is how I got
mm-hmm.
to Los Angeles and everything else.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, well, let's talk about that. So you moved this year,
Yeah.
right before coronavirus took over and put a pause on
Yeah.
things. But how did you get to the point of I'm going to move back to LA? And then also you have to tell me about the cross country trip because I watched you drive across the country with your one of your best girlfriends from Georgia to California, and it felt like that was very freeing
Oh,
experience
it
for
was a
you.
total grace of God. So I meditate every day. I meditate actually twice a day. I meditate in the morning when I first wake up. And for the listeners, just so you know, meditation for me looks like just my quietness and giving God an opportunity to order my steps and speak to me. And sometimes it's me, reciting affirmations. Sometimes it's me praying. Sometimes it's me being completely silent. Sometimes it's me just crying because of the overwhelming love of God. So meditation is different for everybody. There's not a wrong or right way. But
Mm-hmm.
I do practice meditation twice a day. And when I would meditate, when I was living in Georgia, I kept envisioning myself sitting on a beach with mountains. And I would see the mountains, like, and I would wonder, it's so funny, but I would be in my meditation and I would literally step out of myself and be like, where are you? What is this landscape? It looks familiar, but, and then I would be like, oh, you're supposed to be meditating, get back into meditation. So I did that enough times to where I was like, okay, I think I need to ask God, what am I seeing? Like when I close my eyes and I go to this place of meditation, where am I? And so I was, my interest was piqued. And so I Googled where I thought I might have been. And sure enough, it was Malibu. And I was like, having grown up here, I've seen this beach before. And so I was like, that's so interesting that I'm on a beach in Malibu meditating. So I was having a
Right.
conversation with my mom one day, and I said, I think I'm supposed to move to California. And I promise you, I did not know where that came from. Like there was nothing that led me to think, I don't even know what, just the words came out of my mouth. And my mom was like, really? That's interesting. And it was like, as soon as I said it again, just like the doorbell, it resonated in my mind. It was like, oh my gosh. Now, I hadn't lived in Los Angeles at this point in 20 some odd years. I moved from Los Angeles. My family moved from Los Angeles when I was a sophomore in high school. So, it had been a number of years. But I always, it always held a place in my heart because it's who I am and it's where I'm from. And so I would think about living here, but I never really put it into like actual, oh, you're going to live here again one day. Until
Right.
I said that to my mother, and then it became real to me. And I was like, God, okay, this is how I pray. This is really how I pray. I was like, God, so I'm seeing I'm seeing California in my meditation. Is that what is that all about? And if there's something here, please help me to see more of it and get on the path that you're on, so that if I'm supposed to be doing something else, I want to be doing it.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
literally how it started. I started journaling about it. I didn't tell anyone other than my mother. I journaled about it because I journal everything. I call it scripting. Kind of write out a storyline.
Oh, I like
Of
that.
what it looks like, and then I go into my imagination and I imagine it, And if I feel it, if I can literally pick myself up and physically be wherever it is that I'm imagining, then I know that God is behind it, and I need to start the process of seeing how this is going to unfold. So I told my mother in, I don't know, maybe January of 2020.
Wow.
And I told her, I think I'll move there in a year. And then I was literally woken up out of my sleep at least 2 or 3 times a week from the time that I told my mom, woken up out of my sleep 2 or 3 times a week with dreams about moving to LA. And I was like, God, am I supposed to do this sooner than I think I am? And it just kept nudging me, poking me. And so, as in true Alyssa form, I was like, okay, I'm going to throw what I call cast my nets out for a draw. And I said, okay, I'm going to put my resume out there. And if you want me to move sooner than I think I'm supposed to move, then I'll get some hits on my resume. And I submitted my resume. I threw it out there to just like literally cast my net out there to random companies that sounded good, job description sounded good, and by the end of that, it was on a Tuesday morning. By the Tuesday afternoon, I had 2 phone interviews lined up. And by February, I was giving my notice at my job. And February 28th, I left Atlanta, moved to Los Angeles.
Wow. Talk about that scripting paid off.
It sure did.
You didn't, I'm sure you did not imagine that when you were starting to, that process of writing your story, that it would happen that quickly. You said a year, and look at it. Look at God. It was less than 2 months almost.
And it was, it was shocking to me. But in the same, it was also confirming, because again, if you go back to my Hear Aretha Franklin on the radio today, I was already preparing myself to hear to hear the voice of God, and what does that look like, and very much understanding that I am a co-creator of my existence, and coming alongside God and saying, okay, this is what I'm thinking, but I want your will. And I think that that's the part right there. Like when you say, you can co-create all day long, but if you're not asking God, what do you see, God? I mean, because you got a view of it all. What do you want?
Exactly.
If you're not leaving yourself open to that, then you're doing a lot of co-creating, but you might be you might be going in circles.
Right.
So I think the key to that was just asking God, where are you in this, and what do you want? And then literally trusting. And like you said, I moved here on March 3rd is when I got to Los Angeles. I started my new job 7 days later. And on the 9th of March is when I started my new job. And on the 10th of March, they locked the city down and told me I needed to work from home.
Whoa. Yeah, it definitely was God's plan for you to be where you are, and definitely to be there and settled prior to everything that's happened over the last 2-3 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So obviously with the pandemic and the shelter in place, so I know you guys are still pretty much locked down. Your city's still not opened. So obviously, how have you been adjusting, or how have you adjusted, and how have you used the time, when you're not working, to continue to explore and, and work on yourself and your
Well,
journey?
the thing that was interesting is that because of the fact that I have been on this journey and learning so much, to tell me to sit down somewhere and read and meditate and not go outside was like a gift.
Right.
So, I came here under, kind of like this thought that, I'm going to get to LA, I'm going to start my new job, I'm going to meet new people, I'm going to go to happy hours, I'm going to get a boyfriend, I'm going to, all these wonderful expectations, I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to, live my best life. And I get here, of course, and before I can even get started, we're on lockdown. Now, I don't even have toilet paper at this point. I don't know where the grocery store is. It's just like, wait a minute, what? And so the first thing I needed to do was just center myself and figure out, like, what do you do now? And then, of course, like, you're out here by yourself. You do realize that, like,
right.
you're all by yourself. So I took a deep breath and I was like, okay, meditate, pray, and take it as it comes. And so it started there. I just literally was like, okay, I'm going to read, I'm going to pray, I'm going to meditate, and repeat. and learn my new job, where I am working with, 8 new people on a team where I've only ever seen them one time. And they gave me a laptop and sent me home. So I had definitely my work cut out for me, but I hate what the virus has done in terms of the deaths and the things that it's done for families and people, losing their jobs and, just holistically as far as the world is concerned. But I would be doing a disservice if I didn't say it really was not something that was vitally necessary for us to reset and figure out who we are, what do we believe, where are we in this journey of life, and if ever there was an opportunity to rewrite the story of what my life looked like before and how I want it to look now, this is the opportunity to do that. And yes, it's packaged in a very, what could be a very scary package, to open. But God has not changed. He is still with us. And this, so I saw it more so as an opportunity to awaken even further or ascend, go even higher in what I was already learning and establishing as a foundation in my life, to just delve in deeper in that.
Right. Now, I definitely agree with you on that. I think that it's been a time to reflect and reconnect. And I think, like you said, where you talked about scripting, I feel like there's been this opportunity for a lot of scripting, so to speak, to be happening, and just for people to actually just, take the time, because you don't even want to, when this is over, you shouldn't be the same person that you were in March. You should be different. You should be evolved. You should, no one's saying that you have to go out and write a novel or, or write a book or anything or things of that nature. But it's just the simple things of just taking a look on the inside and trying to make some positive changes and evolve and just, the time with your family. And, there are a lot of people, for a while, mean, I was in the house for about 50 plus days before I even stepped outside to go anywhere. And I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I was just so happy to have the time with my husband and my puppy, and just catching up on things that I enjoyed doing inside of my house that when life was going, like I just never had the time to do. So I definitely think you can find the silver linings.
And I don't want to make it seem like it was just like it's been a bed of roses. I mean, there have been, during this period, there have been really beautiful, well-lit, sunshiny days of just feeling, the total love and grace of God. And then there have also been some really dark days, where I've had to be like, what is going on? And what I have come to understand during this period is that it's more so of what's going on within me than what's going on in the world. Because the world obviously is just a reflection of what's going on internally. And so when I say reset, I mean, collectively, the world has had to reset, but individually and individually, we have all needed to reset. And that can come in, if you're not ready for it, it can come in like a tsunami, and you have to decide whether I'm going to stand stiff as a board and let this thing break me, or am I going to be pliable, mutable, bendable, and go with what I, go within and do the work that I need to do to figure out, how do I need to reset? What does my life look like? Taking this opportunity to say, what is really just not serving me well that I need to let go of, and allow to be allow that to go, so that I can take in things that are serving me well, or at least be available to receiving those things that are wanting to come into my life. But like I said, that it doesn't come just with like, happy day. It's doing some internal work that can be tough to deal with, because when you are faced with not being able to deflect and be entertained by outside influences, you're left with yourself. And when you're left with yourself, you got to see shit. I'm sorry. You have to see stuff that you may not really want to look at, or that you've put off looking at, or, ignored for however many years. You have to look at that stuff straight in the face and be like, okay, I guess we're not going anywhere, so I got to deal with it.
Yes. I feel like every time I would read a post where someone or something on social media where someone was like, I'm just going stir crazy and I got to get out of here. And I'm like, do you really dislike being with yourself, that much that you're just about to go crazy? I mean, and this is probably like even like early on, and it's just like, oh my God, like these people are not gonna make it because they don't like themselves.
A lot of people don't, and I would say that there were some things that came up in my life where I was like, ooh, I don't, no. I mean, I was like, you know what? No, but I don't know. I don't want to carry this into the next whatever. So let me go on and deal with this.
Right. Yeah.
So I always tell my sister, I'd rather spend the time in the dark crying, rocking myself than to carry something over into the next year and the year after that and the year after that. I just don't want that in my life. Not anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So that's what I thank God for therapy and having a good therapist, because it definitely helps to, get rid of that and to definitely see yourself. And I've had those moments and this over the last few months as well, where I'm like, oh, okay, I do that a lot, and I'm probably should stop that, because that is not good. So, I like what you said. I mean, it's really about being intentional. during this time. And I think with, your daily routine and what you've carved out and how you approach the day is definitely intentional, and you are learning and continuing to grow
Kyra,
from
I
that.
think also that I'm learning to love me. And, what that looked like for me before was so misconstrued, right? Like, so you hear all the time, oh, you got to love yourself. And, okay, so I go get my nails done and get a pedicure. Oh, that's loving me. No. What that means literally being able to be with yourself and sit with yourself. And whether you have 5 likes on Instagram or no likes on Instagram, whether you put makeup on and, or go get your hair done, or you need to love yourself. And that's so much more than just the exterior. You need to love the inside of yourself. And when you can love the inside of yourself, then you can definitely expect things to change on your exterior.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think too, one of the things that you said in our previous conversation that we both agreed with, it's also being able to choose you and to prioritize and pick you sometimes. I think a lot of times women struggle with that because we feel like we have to service everybody else's needs. And I know I was guilty of that for many, 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 many years. And, and I remember being in therapy and her saying, well, you got to work on self-love. And I'm like, self-love, I love me. And, but it was because I was always putting the needs of other people above mine. So I definitely think that is so key when you start to talk about self-love.
And don't get it twisted. As women, we don't think we have to. We do put on many hats and serve in various roles. But the thing is that as women, we tend to get lost. Our identity gets lost in those roles. And so what happens is, there's nothing wrong with being wife and mother and coworker and friend and daughter and daughter-in-law, or, whatever. Though, those are all roles that we've played or are playing. But don't get lost in that. Like, you need to still be able to be your true, authentic self in those roles. And somewhere along the line, the message got messed up somewhere that made us think that in order to be those things, we had to lose who we were, or who we are innately, who God created us to be. These are all things that are added to who we are. It does not define, though, who you are, because the children grow older and they move out, and the relationships survive or they die. People come into your life. You're on that job. You're not on that job. You're a superstar on the job. Now you're just, another number. I mean, all of those things change. If you find that you are grasping or using those things to define who you are, once they're gone, you're lost, because you don't know who you are separate and apart from those roles. And it's tough to tell the mother who's got newborns or toddlers or children in elementary school, especially those who now are having to deal with, homeschooling their children in addition to working and, serving their family. But they need to, and this is the part where you have to, again, appreciate and learn that self-love, because there's something that you need to do that reminds you of who you are. And I don't know if that's like Lauren, who was on your podcast before, where you go and you work out, you spend some time working out, whether you drive and go get a coffee in the morning by yourself before everybody else is up, whether you read or go sit in your closet and nobody knows where you are. There's just ways that you have to find that time to be like, okay, you know what? I need to connect with who I am. I need to connect within my self, that self that's always connected to God.
Mm-hmm.
I need to not lose who I am in this world of of taking on the responsibilities of all these things. And that's, the blessed thing about being a woman is that we have this multitasking thing down to earth. We can do it with our eyes closed.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that is all you're here to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree with that. That is great, great, great advice, Alyssa. So I will say this has been a great conversation with you, but I do have one last question that I'd like to ask. So now at this point of, your journey, and I know you're still learning, you're still going to be growing and evolving, but now what does fully embracing your authentic self mean to you?
My authentic self is this girl who just flows. I envision myself literally just flowing, whether sometimes it's in a river and I'm just floating with the water down the rapids. Sometimes it's me sitting on a beach, cross-legged, connecting with the ocean and just listening to the waves crash in. Sometimes it's, having a glass of wine and sitting on my balcony and just listening to, what the city. It's not, there's not one hard and fast rule. It's just literally appreciating and learning for the first time in my entire life how to be present and how to be on purpose, to know that I am purposed, and to just let myself be. And that's what it looks like.
I think that looks pretty good from over here. Probably to a lot of other women. So, wow, this was so great. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing with us today and sharing your inspiring journey.
I just, I appreciate what you're doing. I love that platform for women to come to listen and to also participate in sharing their journey, because we learn from each other, and we need to have that space where we can come to and edify each other. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Take care, and we will be right back, everyone.
Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast, and thank you again for joining us. What an inspiring story Alyssa shared with us today. And speaking of inspiring, I know that there are many of you out there who have your own inspiring stories, or a woman who does. So feel free to drop us an email at hello@glowupgirl.com and tell us a story. We'd love to have you on the show. And be sure to visit our blog, glowupgirl.com/blog, to check out our 5 steps to help you get started on your self-discovery journey. And while you're on our site, while I have your attention, link on over to our social media pages on Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, and Facebook. So thank you again for taking your time to join me and share and give me an hour of your day just to hear some inspiring words from a woman who is on her way to living her most purposeful and balanced life. But before we go, I'd like to leave you with a little glowspiration. Trust the process. We always end up right where we're meant to be, right when we're meant to be there. So until next time, stay focused, fab, and glow up.